talk about depth. I met Masi a couple months ago through Ching, and he was talking about his project. And as a Creative Morning host, I get all the themes because we have global themes. This is not something that I come up with, but the entire world in Creative Mornings will talk about depth. And when he talked to me about his project and what he's doing, I thought there was a lot of depth in what he's doing and how he's going about with it. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to ask Masi over and to share a bit more. So a big round of applause. We're going to share, or we're going to change the computer setup, so give us 2 seconds and then we'll be all good to go. But a big round of applause for Masi, please.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. My name is Masi, and I'm very excited to be here. Thanks to Garage, thanks to Creative Mornings. I am the founder and director of Persone, Urban Design Studio, and I'm also an adjunct assistant professor at HKU. I'm teaching urban design. The theme of depth is like very important. When like Mark was suggesting to connect to the project, I was like, wow, I mean, I think I'm still like searching for that every day when I study something, when I do my job. But yeah, but I say, okay, I mean, it's something that I'm like searching for, I'm trying to talk about. I think it's very important also for designer, like all of us creatives, because if you think our work somehow can shape people's life, I think is very important. And that's what is always really driving me to try to understand better what I do, what I study. And I'm so interested in studying the relationship between people and space and built environment. And I think this passion, curiosity, became also almost like an obsession of observing how people behave. I think it's being guided by different experiences and exposure during like my life, a sort of journey. And I try to summarize in like a few steps. There are probably many, but those are very important for myself. And, sorry. Okay, good. So the first exposure was really like the exposure that I had like to human scale in my childhood. Growing up in the 80s in a small like Italian town, and well, maybe on the left I was still figuring out what human scale was, but clearly like this photo reminds me something so strong, which I will never forget. I was actually discussing about this with my mom a few days ago because I will always remember her calling me to go buy grocery from our balcony at the 3rd floor of a 5-story building, calling me, while I was playing probably soccer in the courtyard just every day. And so my mom used to drop down a basket tied to a rope from the balcony with some money in it. And that was for me to go buy grocery. So I would go by the shop, bread, for example. I would come back, I would call her, Mom. She would drop the basket again, and I would put the bread or whatever I bought in the change, and then I would go back to play soccer with my friends in the courtyard. Well, that sounds like silly. Maybe some people will say, oh, wow, what is that behavior? But for me, it was really, especially now, looking back, such a strong experience of human scale at so many levels. It's not just about height and space. There are so many layers of human scale we should understand with design. And another very important step, it was when after high school, here I was 20, I landed my second job. My first one was in a warehouse in a factory. And I was so lucky to join this architecture studio, very small, 7 people, they all became friends. And in my town, and we were working on like a small-scale residential, civic, industrial architectural project. And that's where I learned the ABC of design and architecture. And where also I got the motivation to go to university. One day, my mentor, Andrea, turned to me, after a few years, turned to me and said, you know, Masi, you are not as dumb as I thought. I think you should go university. And that's what I did. It was my mentor, I listened. So I graduated in civil and environmental engineering, and then I was very lucky to be able to join after a few years also Domus Academy in Milan. And I graduated in the Master of Urban Vision Architectural Design. And that to me was life-changing, an incredible experience, Domus, and really changed the way I was looking at design. And I'm still digesting some of the experiences and knowledge that I gained there. Another very important, this Domus, another very important step, it's like discover a young girl, his work, his projects. It was really like getting the tools that then I could use later on in my career and try to, create my approach. I think every designer, no matter what you do in your career, every creative should read a bit about young girl and understand how they approach projects. And finally, I think I would summarize here, like moving to Hong Kong 12 years ago, a bit earlier, and moving to a big city. At this point, going out of scale, if you think comparing to where I'm coming from, if you think of human scale at first. But Hong Kong gave me so many opportunities. For me, Hong Kong is a laboratory, first of all, and that's where then I really start to understand many things of design, because it's a completely different approach. Gave me opportunities to move through scales, to work in different typology of projects, from planning, urban architecture, interior, street design, public space, which I love, and also like having the chance to work in many different countries, like projects in Japan, in China, in Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, and more. And this one was my wall. There's one of my colleagues here when we work here together, and with some of my sketches. So after all of those years and experience at the end of 2019, I decided to pack all my nice drawings and say, okay, I think it's time to open Persone. And so Persone is my studio, and Persone means people in Italian, is the plural of persona. And why I call it people? Because to me it was, for myself especially, it was a statement. Say, okay, I always try to, but from now on, I really want to focus my design on people. Really create, projects that are based on design center design. And at the end, we need to remember that we should design for people. We are designing for people, but many times we forget. There are many other reasoning why we are pushing a design, but many times we forget that. And I think that's so important. And the understanding, the deep understanding of those, even like microdynamics that we have in space with people is extremely important. And that's where probably most of the time I find my answer to the problem, looking at people. I learn every day when I go and try to do my job, observing what is happening. So, and I think that's why the reason I started this project in May 2020, the West Point Street Line. And it was a bit of a crazy idea because I said, okay, I'm living in Kennedy Town in Saiwan, in Kine, they say, for like nearly 8 years now, and I love it. And I know I had ideas how to improve it, how to improve the public life, how to improve the public space for the community, for my community. But, it's not that easy to initiate, to make actually project like this bottoms up by yourself happening, to promote it and like find someone to support you. Normally it goes the other way around, right? You wait for a project, you win the contract, sign a contract, and then you do, but normally the brief is not really. My idea was really like going the other way around, like, which is already happening in many other parts of the world. So I said, okay, whatever, I started. I put together an idea, I put together a proposal, and then I would try to talk to people. So hopefully someone may listen. So what I have done, well, I just went down to the street, and which is my favorite part of my job. And I started to observe, collecting data, taking photos, looking at people, looking at what they do daily, a different time of the day, what are their needs, and how interact with the space, looking at walkability, which is pretty horrible, unfortunately, in Hong Kong, looking at private and public transport, and many other components of our built environment that we live every day. And then I came up with a vision. 2 kilometers, transforming 2 kilometers of existing sidewalk, connecting different destination in between Kennedy Town and Shek Ton Tsoi in Sai Wan district. And 2 kilometers of like a new urban path, full of things to do, full of activities, full of spaces for people, which it would be amazing. So created the vision, said, okay, now it's time to talk to someone. And I was like, who can be the first one? And then I thought about my friend Paul Zimmerman, and I think most of you know him. We started to cooperate back in 2015 in a big research about public space. And I talked to him, and he loved the idea. He supported since day one. After that, I was able to talk with like various developers, and who else? Like Design Anthology even published an article about the project on December 2020. Thank you, Susie and Phil. And this one was actually a site walk with Paul Zimmerman, Jordan Pang, and Sam Yip. They are all district council, right? Jordan and Sam, they are for the Central Western District. And I think it was January 21st, so 21, and we had our sidewalk. I was sharing my idea with them, and receiving their feedback, and it was quite promising. A few weeks after, I think it was St. Valentine 2021, the Marine Department decided to shut down Instagram Pier. I think all of you know Instagram Pier is a Western cargo working area, a very long name. The docks still function in Kennedy Town and Shek Ton Tsoi. They shut down the access to the public, and that was a big thing happening. I mean, for the project, in a way, they proved me right, because the project was actually trying to propose an alternative to Instagram Pier. Not because I don't like it, but because there are reasons that I'm going to tell you soon. But in fact, even like I received a phone call. I said, hi, Mr. Massey. It was the government. I said, we know you have a proposal about this. I was like, oh, wow. I said, we would like to know more. Would you like to have a sidewalk tomorrow? I said, yes, of course. I was a bit concerned, but then it went okay. And, but on the other hand, what happened that day was horrible, because they shut down a huge space that is one of the most important destinations we had in Hong Kong. And it was recognized by everyone. It's a destination that resident, visitors from other districts of Hong Kong, even internationally, will you come to Hong Kong? And you will say, oh, I'm going to actually visit Instagram Pier. Or you probably will bring some of your friends to visit Instagram Pier. And I think it was even elected one of the best public spaces in Hong Kong. Funny enough, it's not a public space. It's always been illegal to enter Instagram Pier. And it was such an important place. So just in space, without being too technical, so the area of Instagram Pier, it was equal to 5 11-a-side soccer pitch, or if you want, football pitches. It was huge. In that day, we lost 4 soccer pitches, 4, which is like 30,000 square meters in one day for everyone. 4 soccer pitches where like people would go there for walking the dog with the kids, biking, skating, having a picnic, working out, Instagramming, and whatever they wanted. It was a place for everyone. It was great. Why? Because it was far from the traffic. It had a very cool like identity, which is so important when you're making spaces and places. And even more, it was on an open, accessible water edge, which makes it super cool. And probably you can sit there and enjoy the best sunset view of Hong Kong. And that's why, you know, it was so important because everyone rely on it. Everyone, government, developers, business owner, and the community. And why? Is because it was providing something that decades of urban planning never did. It was so important. Some of the problems, and you know, the closure of Instagram Pier was really highlighting even more the neighborhoods problem, like in Saigon, which are very common to most of the other neighborhoods in Hong Kong. Lack of public space, or when I seen those kids a few blocks from my home, this is actually taken much earlier. I think it's 2015. Those kids now probably they're much older, and they never had a decent public space. So that's a problem. That's what I'm saying. We are shaping people's life. That's actually making me upset, and that's why I push even more on my job. Even we have public space, many times it's not really accessible, it's not really connected to your A to B in your daily life, or the quality is actually not that good. Actually, they're quite, not really attractive, they're quite unattractive mostly. Another problem is walkability. Think about the streets we walk every day. They are dominated by cars. The sidewalks are super narrow, and most of the time of the day they are overcrowded because we have pedestrian congestion as well. And think about what you can do in the streets of Hong Kong apart walking in terms of like social activity, right? Not much. You cannot even find space to stop and talk with someone. You cannot sit anywhere unless you pay. There are very few public seats, even like close to the most like, you know, important transport node. There are very few seats. Sometimes they are empty, you know, you need to flow engineering and so on, but we could make it better. And even just along, you know, this interface between the promenade, the waterfront, and Saiwan, well, the spaces are kind of like neglected or underutilized, and it could be much better. At the closure of Instagram Pier, instead of having that nice walk in this protected and nice place, everyone has to walk along a highway. And this is now since February 2021. Let's talk also about illegal parking, but we can talk about it later. And let's go back to the only soccer pitch left, which is the Belcher Bay Promenade. It's been opened in October 2019. I was there to the opening. And it's good. It's great. It's very successful. Yeah, of course, it's the only place we have on the water in Kennedy Town. So, I mean, of course, people will go there. And, you know, next to the water is always attractive. But look, this was end of May, Sunday, 6 p.m. Crazy busy. And people doing whatever. Kids, they love it. They run around, biking, skating. They are like skaters. And any other, a few benches, some playground facilities. But it's too small. For the density that we have for the population, is too small. Think about the Kennedy Town, now I'm going technical. Kennedy Town is at 0.8 square meter of public space per person. The Hong Kong standard, there are 2 square meters per person, which doesn't mean that it's proper, but we are below the 50% of what is supposed to be required in Hong Kong. If you go there, like part of it is also occupied by a farm, that's actually not accessible all day. They shut it down. They use it at the time they are pleased to. And another problem is there is no shading at all. In this climate, shading is essential. We are not living in Netherlands. We are not living in Sweden. We are living in Hong Kong. It's pretty hot. 4 to 5 months a year, which is like summertime, well, the climate is pretty intense. If you go there like me and those ladies, the Sunday at 3 p.m., it was super hot. It was way too hot. And that's why there is no people. If you go there at lunch, from May to September, it's impossible unless it's a rainy day or cloudy, but it's very hot. And those ladies, they were like finding some like refuge like next to this like plasticky big thing. I don't know what is that. I mean, and this is common to the entire waterfront of Hong Kong. If it is newly developed, somehow there is no shading. There are many reasons. Maybe we discuss in the Q&A about it. So what what I want to propose with this West Point Street line, it was like try really to improve the accessibility to the waterfront. Is like bringing back the waterfront to the neighbor and the other way around, creating a more continuous waterfront experience, because now it's disconnected. Like the people walking on the highway, if you go from Belcher Bay Promenade to Central West District Promenade, you need to walk on the highway nowadays. Instagram Pier was like that, you know, stitching them together illegally. And the idea is like, okay, let's connect it, but not just for walking. Why we don't start to envision that actually the strip, the line can be full of activities? We have the chance. In fact, during the research, and I'm going to show you maybe more later, if you check along those 2 kilometers there's been like study, there are all of those like big planters. And they're just functioning as a buffer. They're pretty big. They're buffering the highway. They're watering them most of the days, every day probably. A lot of trees, a lot of green, but no one can use it. And they're big. In total, we are around 13,000 square meters. So it's 1.5 of the crowd at Belcher Bay Promenade. But it will be in line. So the point is like, you don't concentrate all the people in one spot, but you dilute them, you stretch them along many different, like a sort of like a sequence of different spaces for many other activity. And that would help also like to absorb and reconnect the flow of people coming from the MTR and the neighbor in a different way, rather than all like together in the spot. And it could look like this. You can have anything. A strategized situation along all the docks and at the entrance of the Central West District Promenade. You have all of those like cars illegally parking. I removed their plates, yes. And trucks and vans, they are like, many they are going to the docks, but others actually, from my observation, they are not even related to those activities, and they're loading, unloading, parking there forever. What happened then? In May 21, I've been invited to the Central West District Council, 9 District Council, Home Affairs Department, Transport Department, Highway Department. Yeah, I presented them. And it was very well received. All the district council supported me. They even asked to continue support them. And I said, yes, of course, I can. I try my best. And donated also the vision to all the relevant departments of the government. But then a few months ago, actually at the beginning of 2022, I didn't see much happening. The people still walking on the highway. The kids, they still don't have a place where can they grow up and play together. And I was like, okay, I'm just going home myself. I pushed it before. But after nearly 2 years by myself, I said, I think I need some help. And I talked to Design Trust, and they liked the project. Thank you, Design Trust. They supported me with a grant, so I can start the new second chapter, which is called Neighborhood Lab. And that started to get traction, and I gained more like support. Garage Society became, I gained them as like venue partner. And then also had a sponsor, thanks to them as well, Placemaking Architect and HQ Co-work, supporting the initiative, which they are mostly like 3. One is like finalizing this like urban strategy report. And the plan is to present in the coming months again. I'm gonna shoot like mail to everyone soon, to government department, developers, designer, and anyone wanna know about it, about the project, and they maybe also wanna cooperate or even support. The second one is with all these beautiful young people. They are all my students from the past year, from HKU, HKU Space, and HKDI, urban planning, urban design, architecture. And I invited to this like session of sort of like workshops where they can just know about the project, the site, the way they approach my work. And they had the chance also to start to share their ideas together on some of the focus area, which they are actually really like implementing my report. And the last things I'm gonna tell you this morning, and the third initiative is is this video chat series, and it's very fun for me. I'm like a kid when I'm like preparing everything, and it's called A Walk With. It's I turn myself into video maker, movie director, makeup artist, cameraman. I do everything myself, and practically I invite very different people to talk to me, from designer, architects, but also some district council, a developer. I was also talking M+ with the curator for design architecture. And you will see them now in a quick video that I'm going to show you. And I invite different type of people. And hopefully I can continue, if the project will go on, to really try to invite them to tell something that I think is relevant for the project, but also for community and the city in general in Hong Kong, maybe not only. Because I believe learning from different backgrounds, different perspectives is very useful always. So that's so important. I try to play, let's see if it works.
Go. Thank you so much, Masi. But yeah, any questions? It's open to you guys.
Hi, everyone. I'm an architect, just to give you the background info. And I'm curious on the topic of depth. What is the sort of most challenging step in building up the story that you've presented today? So you started sort of being inspired by a neighborhood to, of course, sending these emails in a few months to, again, developers, government, etc. What's the sort of biggest challenge in that process?
There are many, but I think I would like to mention two. Well, one, when you look at this type of projects, this type of context, and I'm sure you know as well, you have so many things, just in terms of like design, the space, the build environment, so many different aspects to consider. And it requires a lot of attention, reiteration, mistakes, going back to understand what is going on. That's one. It requires so many energies, so much time. But I love it. It's so important to go deep and really look at what's going on in certain of those areas, because if there is no time to do that, we will never really solve those problems. We can continue to build and develop, but it's really important to go to understand really the point. And the other, I'm still actually discovering, like the challenge of like trying something like this and really try to connect to all the stakeholders and push it and learn how to talk to them. Because if you work on a commercial project, we talk with clients, it's different. But going with something like this, at first, the first year when I had the first round of talking maybe with developers, it wasn't that easy, and I don't think I was able to speak the right language for a project like this. And that's really challenging. I hope I'm adjusting to it for the next round, because I hope I can push it forward. So those, I think, the two big challenges. There are many others, but especially the second is something new. I never pushed a project myself in this way with no support, and where many people don't see actually they could also make profit, but actually could bring much better condition and also profit.
There we go.
Hey, Masi. So, I've experienced an issue, and I wonder if you've had the same when you're talking to stakeholders, like just people who live in the neighborhood, and you are proposing something to them and asking their opinion. However, since they may have never experienced, quality public space, therefore they can probably never imagine what it could be. So it's kind of a case of sort of like if you asked people, if Thomas Ford asked, or if Ford asked people what they wanted and they'd never seen a car, they would simply ask for a faster horse. So how do you overcome this situation? Have you ever had this situation?
Okay. Yes, I think it's a very good point, because if someone ever experienced a public space like maybe I experienced when I was a kid back in that town in Italy, well, they don't really know how it could be. But one thing I learned in those years when I look at people, I observe people and try to understand what is going on in between them and the space they have. Even they never had a space, there are certain needs that human being or following Mr. Gell, Homo sapiens, we have. It's like part of our nature. And if walking in any town, many times I see chairs here and there. In these like narrow sidewalks, there's a chair next to a residential entrance. And then if you go back maybe at the right time, I don't know, after they come back from having yam cha or other moment of the day in Hong Kong, you see actually someone sitting there. And they're all like the other area organized by people. So I can tell you even more. I have another research about this. People somehow then they come up with their own adjustments. They may not know like how great is having like a public squares in Italian medieval old town, but somehow they have those needs because we're all the same. We have 2 arms, 2 legs. We have the same size, more or less. Maybe some might be less than us, but we have the same animal, and we have the same type of activity we want to develop. So on that one, we need to leverage, because as soon as you provide it, people will understand it, will use it. Look at the promenade. Even it's like just an empty space with some plasticky stuff and no shade. It's full of people because they need space. They want this social space is so important. I would like to also add these things. When you have a space, you start to use it. The better it is, the more inviting it is, the more social activity they start to happen because you feel it. So I trust in our nature. So it could be changed. People would adapt. I see Hong Kong people actually using public space a lot when they find it. Going to the beach, going hiking. So there is a chance. This city, unfortunately, has been developed in a way that didn't provide the space. But as soon as they have it, they go there. So I think we can fix it.
Okay, we are out of time, but we have time for one more question because I saw your hand was raised earlier. So one more, and then we're gonna.
Thanks, Masi. Earlier this week, like 2 days ago, I did a kindness walk in Shek Tong Tze. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. And you walk around and you give food to homeless people. And Jeff, the founder, he was mentioning how there's a lot of hostile architecture that the government's built in to dissuade homeless people from just taking up public space or, ruining the environment. And I just wonder if the government that you've spoken to has broached that with you and then how you kind of overcome that.
No. I know the initiative. I've been part of it too. And I love what they do. Yes, we have definitely like a big problem with homelessness in Hong Kong. No, the government didn't approach this topic. But actually with the students during those workshops, the idea was like, since I know friends also, they work on other NGO to support other problems. And we had the idea that some of those spaces, especially when we want to buffer the highway, right? And create this like enclosing, segregating finally the cars, so not the other way around. Maybe this like buffer, they can be something more than just a wall, but they can be like sort of like spaces where we can have also like social activities. I don't think I'm the most experienced to tell you what exactly they can do, but probably we can provide spaces also for a NGO like Impact Hong Kong. That would be great. I would love to have a chat also with them. Even just to propose, there are opportunities. There are opportunities to find spaces. They are completely underutilized. So why not? Because many NGOs, they need to rent spaces and they need to find someone to support the rent to help people, which doesn't really make sense. It doesn't happen through the official channel. Yeah.
Thanks. That's actually a very good question because who is the city designed for, right? And I think it's one of the most vulnerable groups, and yeah, they're being pretty much neglected or even designed against them. But yeah, that was Impact Hong Kong. I can recommend everyone to have a look at that. They're a great organization. But thank you, Massi. Big round of applause for Massi.
Thank you. Thanks.